I want to ask you this final question, and I mean, it might be a big one actually. So if you don't have to answer if you're like, yo, I'm out of time and bandwidth here. But it has to do with what you call the Western ayahuasca culture,
Sure.
and what I see as like the Western like the Western psychedelic culture's fetish for ayahuasca right now, and for ayahuasca shamanism, and the larger and how it sits inside of a larger political, social, complex web from colonial extraction and the travesties that were perpetrated on the South American people for hundreds of years, that has given rise to the ability to even have an ayahuasca industry, and that with the murders, death, rape, exploitation on all levels, and as well as the positive benefits that come out of people going to seek ayahuasca, and finding the healing in that where they never found it before. And I'm just curious if you can comment on this Western ayahuasca culture, and what's wrong, and how do you suppose people who might be wrapped up in it can correct to best reflect a good way of being with ayahuasca as a global phenomenon.
I think the first thing to understand about that culture is that it's very young and it's only been created in the last 10 to 15 years. And so if you're embarking and participating in the nature of that culture, there's very little substance to it other than the mythology and beliefs that are perpetuated between the people that are part of that culture.
Which
And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, what is that? What are these philosophies that are being propagated by this young culture?
but the idea that ayahuasca is just a miraculous thing and that if you take it, you're going to have a miraculous experience no matter what, and that Mother Ayahuasca is this infinitely benevolent being that is there for your supreme well being, and that I don't know, it seems like a very laissez faire attitude towards something that we've always considered to be something very serious. So I think it's just in general a concept of taking something that's very very serious and ultimately not treating it that way.
Like a Disney
And
farm, like at a real farm, animals are slaughtered. It's brutal, like it's hard work. And then in a Disney farm, all the animals are friendly and happy and talk with you and have all these things.
exactly. And in the case of ayahuasca, you mentioned eloquently a number of the problems that are found within the ayahuasca community. And the other thing that I would really highlight on is that most people that are getting involved in the ayahuasca community have their own psychological difficulties. And so you're potentially interacting with a lot of people that come from very different mindsets, as well as having lots of different kinds of experiences in their lives, not all positive, most of them, in fact, not positive, associated with their own mental states and why they're involved in ayahuasca in the first place. And then you see, because of this explosion of interest, an incredible amount of charlatanism. And so, in an unregulated industry, which ayahuasca is, and in many cases illegal, and we do not support the illegal use of ayahuasca, you have situations where people are untrained utilizing the substance under false beliefs and false pretenses. And so, we highly recommend that you do extensive research on the people or group with whom you're going to participate and see if they have consistency over time, and that if what they talk about resonates with you, and if what the other people who've had experiences with them and the outcome of those experiences resonate as well, so that you can at least get some kind of personal connection and vibe and understanding, and not just go in under a blind belief system that this is this great thing. It may or may not be. And when it is, I think it's one of the most miraculous things truly that I've come across in life. And when it's in what people call the dark expression of it or the negative expression of it, it's incredibly traumatizing and difficult. And so I think you want to literally put every single variable and possibility in your favor if you're going to have this kind of experience, especially if you're looking for some kind of positive transformation or healing.
I have I'm glad you got to that so concisely. I have another question, and it's based on a proposal that that's been made around that, you know, white Western people like should no longer be going for ayahuasca, like no longer heading down to Peru, no longer looking for it as a, you know, as an extension of ayahuasca and the ayahuasca industry and the ayahuasca boom and this Western ayahuasca culture that you were talking about here, sort of like making this imaginary, like, you know, accidentally racist, noble, savage idea of I need to go down and get to Peru where the traditional shaman is and get an authentic spiritual experience, the authentic spiritual truth from the, you know, the authentic shaman. And then I can take that and it'll help me be a better person. And I can go back, I can take those spiritual cultures and I can bring it back home, and I can live a better life with spiritual meaning now infused in a meaningless world of Western industrial, you know, consumerism as a way of life. But that is ultimately just the current manifestation of a long history of, you know, resource extraction on behalf of colonialism against the indigenous people. And that, you know, after we take your trees and we take your oil and we take your, you know, labor for rubber, and eventually we'll find the last thing that has any value, which is some sort of spiritual meaning or spiritual something, and we'll take that too. How do you feel about the desire to even continue going to ayahuasca, and the larger interest in the Western world to be like, oh, I should have an ayahuasca experience, you know, in the larger context of you know, a history of extreme extraction and terrible violence that has been, you know, like propagated onto the people of South America because of colonial extraction?
I see it really from 2 points of view. The indigenous people and the local Peruvian shamans are part of now a country that's called Peru, and they have needs themselves, and those needs are incredibly difficult to meet, and they have something of interest to the rest of the world now that is truly theirs and unique to themselves. And I think they have a right to be able to share that if they want to. I think the idea behind coming and extracting something and taking it home, they're very well aware of. And that is also something that I would, you know, breathe a word of caution into in terms of who you're interacting with and why. You know, in my case and story is very different to that, because I didn't come here to extract something and take it away. I came here to learn something and stay and share it based on a traditional way that ultimately benefited the lives of the people that had that knowledge, and we became, you know, tighter than a family. We became a kind of group that of bonded in love and dedication that has endured through my early 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I think if you think that you're going to come and in essence extract something, you're missing the point of ayahuasca. You're coming and receiving a tremendous gift, and that gift is something that can be not only beneficial to you, but ultimately beneficial to the lives of the people that you interact with beyond you, and that the transformation and change that you can receive is something that is a continuous gift that ultimately gets given and passed on and transforms the world in a positive way. And so I think if it's a question of extracting the value out of it and only sharing that for Western consumerism, it's already lost what we call the medicine. It's already lost the essence of it. And if you're coming for that, that's the very thing that I would warn against coming for. So the medicine is a kind of unconditional generosity and kindness and love that we talked about in the podcast, and transference between the plants and the humans, and it comes in this non-judgmental way. And if you come with that kind of intention, then you're not part of that extracting and destroying mentality that has been perpetrated and propagated all over the place. You're actually doing something different. And I think that there's room for that something different. I mean, I have been challenged many, many different ways over the years about what it was that I created. And ultimately, what I stand on is that what we created was a space to be able to offer this incredible experience to people that were in need of that experience. And we didn't limit the nature of that expression of that experience. We said, this is real. It's very serious. You need to take this unbelievably seriously. This is probably one of the biggest decisions of your life. Please treat it that way. This is not spiritual tourism at all. People are coming for very, very specific and very significant reasons. And if you treat it outside of that paradigm, you're not coming at it from the mindset or the point of view where you're really going to get from it what you think you are. And so I think that intention is unbelievably important, that centeredness behind the decision is important, and that you come from a place that is not desiring to continue to propagate and perpetuate the systems that have ultimately caused greater destruction, and that you understand that you're being given a gift. You're being given access to something that would otherwise have no way to access in your life, that many people over thousands of years did an unbelievable amount of work to be able to share with you, and that it needs to be treated with that level of reverie and that level of respect.
That's beautiful, Hamilton. Thank you for that. And that's
I really
it.
Appreciate it. Thank you too.
Oh, here we go. We're back. That's it. I'm just going to turn my camera on, just so that as I say goodbye to you, because we may never speak again other than over email, that I could offer you my face saying thank you for your time, and I really appreciated the conversation.
I really appreciate it too. Thank you so much. You're a frozen face.
Oh,
it still won't.
I hope it's smiling.
It's a smiling frozen face.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I deeply appreciate it as well. I know that you had your own, I don't know how to describe it, ideas or thoughts before coming onto this. And I really appreciate, you sharing your forum with us to be able to share these messages. And I hope I was able to share something that gave validity to why we would have this podcast.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it was great, and I did really appreciate it, and I think that it'll be well received by my constituency.
Fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, James. It's been a real pleasure speaking today.
Take care, Hamilton.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.